Hi, are you a Vermont voter? I'm Cris Ericson with my friends here today. I'm an independent candidate. I'm on the ballot for U.S. Congress, representative to Congress, and for governor of Vermont as an independent on your November 6th ballot. But early absentee voting starts at the end of August. And I'd like to introduce two Liberty Union Party candidates. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ngoima, that's Ngoima, and I am the Liberty Union candidate for Lieutenant Governor.
Hi, I'm Emily Peyton. You may remember that I ran for governor a number of years back where Cris and I met. And I was invited to run for governor as a Liberty Union candidate. And I accepted with a caveat that I'm running to propose a complete transformation, a metamorphosis. So I think we have some awesome ideas here. Please listen and see what you can do to further them and add your own.
Great. Maybe we could start out talking about homeless veterans.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, there are homeless veterans all over the United States of America. And someone pointed out to me that this should not be mixed up with immigrants who may be homeless and immigrants who are seeking help and shelter. That's two different subjects. So let's keep the subjects separate and just address the problem with homeless veterans. There are at least a minimum of 40,000 homeless U.S. military veterans, maybe as many as 50,000. Many of them have pensions. Some that don't have pensions may have left the service early because of explosion injuries. They may have not been in the service long enough to get a pension. So they've got some of the worst injuries, and they don't have a pension because they got injured before being in the service long enough, but they may qualify for SSI disability. Now, either way, if we can get as many as possible of these to come to the state of Vermont, then they're coming into the state of Vermont with an income. So if you're looking at 40,000 homeless veterans, and let's say you could get 10,000 of them to move to Vermont, that's 10,000 times approximately 1,000 in a month benefits. So that's $10 million a month of new money into the economy that goes to stores, clothing and groceries. Or if you bring 20,000 homeless veterans into Vermont, that's $20 million a month of new money into the economy of Vermont, and so forth. But the questions are, how do we provide them homes? And I have a lot of ideas about providing them homes. Emily has one idea of a cost-effective way to build homes. Would you like to show up to your hand, Emily?
Yeah, but I also want to speak to the issue of veterans and homelessness, and we also know that we have a rising suicide rate, and among veterans, the suicide rate is 8 times higher. So we need to be asking ourselves, why are they going to serve our country and then becoming suicidal? What is the harm that's been done to them emotionally and spiritually after supposedly serving to protect our country?
And physically.
Right, and especially when today we have an average of 120 bombs falling on 7 different countries a day that we have not declared war on. So I just want to say that, and I want to also say that we are not a great country if we are not housing our people. There's nothing great about us if we cannot house the people that we have here.
Well, it's not just 40,000 homeless United States military veterans. There are 2 million homeless Americans.
And there are many more who are struggling, putting all their money into rents and getting no stability, putting their money into housing that's toxic. So as many have already been introduced to, I've been advocating for this material hempcrete. Now this is a raw sample. It's not finished. It's showing you the insulation value of this material called hempcrete.
I thought it would be green.
You can make it green if you wanted to.
Wait,
but
I mean, so that's the color the hemp is when it's dry?
When it's combined with a lime. Now it doesn't have concrete. The beauty...
Well, tell me how you make it.
Well, you get bales of the hemp shiv, that's these little particles, And
then it's green.
then you combine it with a high calcium lime. Green is
The green part
a label for a type of building that will help the environment. And unfortunately, many of the very high-end buildings that are not using any energy are taking so much embodied carbon to build that they only earn back the amount that they save over their lifetime. But this, because it's made from hemp, and when it's growing, sequesters 4 times the amount of carbon in one season than a mature set of trees, that you're sequestering carbon in here as it turns to stone. So these buildings
By
help us.
sequestering, you mean the carbon isn't going up into the atmosphere?
Right, it's getting locked into the
It's right in
locked into the stone material, and also the plants released more oxygen and sequestered more carbon
so
as
it's
they
slowing
grow.
down the global warming.
Exactly.
So global warming is the sun rays are coming down, and then if there's a layer of ozone or whatever overhead, the sun rays can't get back up.
Yeah.
They can't bounce back up, so
Yeah.
so the earth gets hotter.
Well, it's our increase of greenhouse gases, and actually the best thing that people can do is start eating free-range meat and stop eating at factory farms, because the methane from the standing poop that these animals have to stand in factory farms is 4 times more damaging to our environment.
Well, I'm 66 years old, and I stopped eating meat to lower my cholesterol. I became a vegetarian so I can live longer.
How about you?
Well, I'm not, I probably am, I'm not technically a vegetarian, but I don't eat meat very often.
Yeah.
I'm an omnivore, like most
Yeah.
human beings are born. But that's beside the point. This is a material that potentially could grow in the state of Vermont.
Well, we are now
We
growing
can make
hemp.
this, now
Most
that
of-
it's finally legal.
Right, but most of the growth in Vermont is to produce the medicine that comes from hemp that doesn't get you high, that's enormously healing in terms of arthritis, in terms of seizures. It's really helping the nerves speak to one another much better. It's called CBD. And because we're such a small state and we have a reputation for organic farming, the CBD markets are where people are focusing the new hemp laws. And the CBD's plants are grown more like you grow the marijuana plants, rather than these fields and fields from which you get the hemp fiber and the
But it's the same plant.
It's the same plant species.
This is a different species of hemp than the one that produces CBD?
Not necessarily, but when this used to be the waste product, and the reason it's different than straw or other things is because of its open cell structure. So what you're getting out of this when you cut down a field and use the fiber and take the hemp shiv out, and there's pretty massive type machinery that does this in an efficient way. When you get smaller, it's so inefficient that our time is used incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
Did
So
you make this by hand or machine?
this block, we took the bale, we made it by hand. We take the bale of the shiv, we mixed it with the lime binder, and incidentally, we have just imported the first container
What is a
load.
lime binder?
It's a high calcium lime. It's a certain kind of lime.
Is it
that-
a liquid?
No, it's a powder, and you mix it with water in this, and this is like a half.
Can you get it from limestone in Vermont?
I don't know the answer if our lime would have the correct balance of calcium and hydration. But I know we have lime in Vermont. The kind of lime that we use for building is a hydrated lime, and the lime that we're going to be using for the first 4 small houses comes from France. There's another place in New Mexico that we can pull. It has a certain chemical makeup, because if you don't use the right stuff, it will crumble.
Okay, so to say it's made in Vermont, Wouldn't it be better to try to find a source of lime in Vermont, so you can say
Yes
it's
and no.
100% Vermont
Well,
product?
Yes and no. I mean, I think the purpose is to develop this building method, and the reason why it's important is because these buildings are essentially fireproof. You can put a torch to this. It's safe. The pests won't go in it. You don't have any termites. It's going to sequester carbon, as we spoke of. It's going to last for centuries and turn to stone. It's going
It has
to
insulation
also,
properties.
it's insulative, highly insulative, and it's also going to help with the effect of the toxins in our regular building systems. This is the most non-toxic system, so children all children should be in much cleaner environments without mold,
Or lead paint.
without lead paint, without formaldehyde, without VOCs, and this building system will help us in all those. And this is really the raw stuff.
Okay,
So-
now, let's get back to the homeless veterans.
Yep.
Is this going to be cost effective to build homes for homeless veterans out of hemp?
Well-
how many fields of hemp does it take to make one home for homeless veterans?
Okay,
Because remember, I'm talking like, let's bring 10,000 of these guys.
Well,
to
we can do
Vermont.
we can do this. It takes roughly 3 acres of hemp grown not as CBD, as hemp grown thickly, and it grows about 200 to 300 plants per yard.
You're talking in 1 year.
Yes.
It
yeah,
takes
this is
3
seasonal.
acres to build.
But I mean, you're
I'm
talking
sorry,
about,
Yeah.
reverse it. It's
one-
5 acres for a 3,000 square foot house.
okay, but that's for it. The hemp grows in one growing season.
Yeah.
Right.
And so in one growing season, it takes how many acres to build a house?
It takes 5 acres, but what it
5
also,
acres
for
one growing season.
That's right.
One house.
That's right, and then you will use, of course, you'll use different stud systems, but this is the wall system, of course. So as hemp is coming back, and we see that hemp is on the verge of being removed from the controlled substance list nationwide through the Farm Act, you will see the processing that we need. So we can grow it. We can grow 5 acres. Do we have the processing? We don't have the processing yet, Chris. And the right type of processing requires big investment.
What do you mean we don't have the processing?
Well, the hemp is the strongest fiber on earth. They're using the fiber to make all kinds of hard plastics. Remember, Ford built a car body out of fiber. It can be used instead of fiberglass. It can be used instead of hard plastic. The hemp can be used instead of graphene in another form to be able to conduct electricity. There are as many uses as you want to delve into.
What do you mean by processing? Because you're saying,
Okay,
you're saying
processing.
5 acres
Yeah,
to make
but then you
one
have to
house.
cut it down. You
Okay,
have
but
to cut it down,
multiply-
but what I'm trying to tell you is that the fiber is so strong that it will get tangled into regular farm equipment and break it. So you have to have certain kinds of equipment to
A
deal
new
with it.
type of equipment.
Well, they already have it in Europe, Netherlands, Canada. They already have it. It's just a matter of the cost of bringing it here. You can get
Why
a little
can't it be
tiny one and
manufactured?
get a
Why-
little pile of
It could be
shiv and do
manufactured
it
here,
for.
but there
Why
has,
can't we make a manufacturing plant in Vermont to manufacture the...
but
Okay, money. Okay, let's talk about money. All right, I'm going to talk about money. We need money. Okay, now I'm going to talk about where to get the money for the homeless veterans. Just give me 1 minute here. Okay, now our taxpayers are flying out of your paycheck. You get your paycheck and go, it shrunk. Because all the taxes went out of your paycheck, and they're going to the federal government. They're going to the United States Congress. And the United States Congress votes on giving billions of your taxpayer dollars to the Pentagon. And wait a second.
billion,
Okay, 700 billion. Okay, and now the Pentagon
12 zeros.
hands out this money to Lockheed and Boeing and
I
says,
know
here
they
you
do.
go, here's your research, design, and development money. But if you worked for Lockheed as an engineer, you would have to sign a work-made-for-hire agreement under U.S. copyright law for every patent, for every blueprint, You would have to sign a work made for hire agreement if you work for Lockheed or Boeing or any of these companies, and they would say to you, you can't work for us as an engineer unless we own whatever you invent. And that's called work made for hire. It's a general principle under copyright and patent law. And it also comes under several treaties. There's
So essentially, the taxpayer has initiated not only the internet, but all these other technologies, and because of the law is not being regarded, we ought to own part
of
of
the
these.
patent. We have to restore the balance of power in U.S. patent law. And there are articles on the internet about restoring the balance of power in U.S. patent law. And the balance of power is messed up by something called the TRIPS agreement, T-R-I-P-S, which is an international intellectual property treaty regarding patent rights. There's the Paris Convention, which involves intellectual property rights and work made for hire, and then the United States copyright law and United States patent law. And all of these are cheating the hell out of people. So there are articles on the internet about restoring the balance of power under U.S. patent law, and that means that when companies like Boeing and Lockheed say, we're giving you a paycheck, therefore we own every bomb you design, we own every F-35 jet you design, we own everything you design. Well, we can do the exact opposite and say, our taxpayer dollars go to the United States Congress, who gives them to the Pentagon, who gives them to the defense contractors. Therefore, we should also say we have a right to claim work made for hire. We have a right to say we paid for the research, design, and development, and we should own a minimum of 50% of the profits. When Lockheed and Boeing sell their F-35 jets and their bombs to our allies worldwide, they're selling F-35 jets and bombs and all kinds of weapons. They sell a fortune of weapons to Israel. When they're selling these weapons and they're making trillions and trillions of dollars, and their CEOs are fat cat billionaires. Wait a minute, we paid for the research, design, and development. Let's turn the table around and say, we're going to demand under work made for hire that we own 50% of the profits.
And that is distributed as a universal basic income.
Or we can use it for things like homeless veterans, because it's. Let's get back to the 40,000 homeless veterans. If we took 50% of the profit from Boeing and Lockheed and all these defense contractors who are making their profit off of our dollars, they're using our dollars to make their profit. They're like kings and queens. There are all these.
Well, they're sick people. I mean, I think we really got to understand that if there are people who are benefiting off of the harm and suffering off of others, they are very sick people. And we as a people need to come together and stop allowing ourselves to be divided and come together to take care of each other. So that is why I am beginning to build small houses now, and there are more homeless people than just the veterans. There are more people that want to come together in community. And that is what we need to encourage.
Right. Now, I have two ideas on the money.
But can we back up? Can we back up to the Constitution?
Right. Well,
because and the Constitution says in Article 10 that it is the Congress that is to coin and regulate the monetary system. They let go of their constitutional responsibility. And who have they given it to? They've given it to the Rothschilds, the banks. And what did the Rothschilds say? What does Nathan Rothschild say way back in the 1900s? He said, give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes the laws. So think about that. He doesn't care what laws are made, so long as he can control when and where and how money is circulated. The Congress is no longer circulating money, putting money into circulation for the purposes of the people. They can
No.
reclaim that. They can put money into circulation for the people who need it. So money does not have to cost so much the most for the people who need it the most.
What's going on behind the scenes, Emily, is every CEO of every major corporation buys stock in all the other corporations. So that's how they're merging towards one
Yeah.
world government. Every single major worldwide corporation, the presidents
Yeah.
and the CEOs, the people who are running these
Yeah.
corporations, they're like a monopoly table, and
That's
each
right.
one buys stock in all the other corporations, and then they get on the board of all the other corporations. So then they sit around the board having board meetings because they all own stock in each other's corporations.
But we know that. We know that. We know that. And we know that if we try to fight them, they will crush us. We know that. But what do we have?
They already crushed us.
Well, we are not defeated. We are not victims here. And I would ask everybody who's watching to stop being a victim. I mean, where's the joy in being a victim of these systems? We have the energy in the people who understand that, number one, the women have not put their voice forward. They were not included in the foundation of our Constitution. Their concepts, our concepts of nurturing, of mercy, of creativity, have not been put into law. We've been working under a sexist system. And it is time that we revisit it and say the foundation of our country is not imbalanced. It has to be balanced with our concepts included. And now, people get it. People get it who are Republican. The blessed unrest is enormous. We know we cannot continue. We cannot solve our problems using the same systems that created it. And we have the internet. For God's sakes, the Constitution was written when we didn't even have light bulbs. We didn't even have electricity. Now we have the internet. We have the capacity to make a horizontal self-governance, because I, for one, do not want to win in this type of political system and have power over others. That's not what I want. I want people to have inclusive participation and a horizontal self-governance. I will not cede my personal authority to someone else, and I'm asking our viewers to step into your source power and stop being a victim to any system, the health system, the political system, the taxation system, the prison system. Stop it and start beginning to say, if we have unity, that's the part of the liberty unity, to come together and we understand that we want a metamorphosis, all we have to do as a union is to stop complying with the systems for a week.
The Liberty Union is a revolutionary socialist party that is solely based in the state of Vermont. We started in 1970, so we've been here a long time. The principal difference between the Liberty Union and all of the other participants in the electoral process is that we're proposing not a variation on what somebody else is proposing, but that we ought to move as a society, as people, in the direction of a socialist, sharing economy, a life where housing, medical care, education, and a basic minimum income is guaranteed for everybody. It's not merit-based. Capitalism is a system based upon competition, and competition ultimately leads to war. And that is thus where we find the United States is primarily dependent upon a military economy. As Cris has pointed out and Emily has said, we are not stakeholders, shareholders in the military industrial economy that is not run by the government, but in fact runs the government of this country. We assume, because we are told that the military budget of $700 billion is necessary to keep us safe. I'd like to ask us to think about safe from what? And at what cost to everybody on the planet?
I want to point out that part of that 700 billion military budget, and follow me here, like I said, your taxpayer dollars get ripped right out of your paycheck. They go to the U.S. Congress. The U.S. Congress votes to give them to the Pentagon.
To private
The,
companies.
the Pentagon then hands them out to Boeing and Lockheed and so forth.
Private companies.
Boeing and Lockheed have political action committees, and they give money to their political action committees, who turn around and give it to the current members of the U.S. Congress.
And that
So your money has come full circle. Follow your dollar. Your dollar came out of your paycheck.
Yep.
It went to the U.S. Congress. The members of the U.S. Congress voted to give it to the Pentagon. The Pentagon decided to give it out to the defense contractors. The defense contractors gave part of your paycheck to their political action committees, who gave it to the representatives to Congress. Your money
Right.
came full circle and landed. Part of that 700 billion is in the pockets of the current United States
Right.
senators and current representatives to U.S. Congress. That's money laundering.
Well,
That's money laundering.
Well,
Money
that
laundering.
is why the people of Burlington and the people of Vermont do not want the F-35s with their nuclear capacity to be situated in Burlington, yet everybody who's elected to our Congress and our Senate have advocated for those planes to be brought here. And what you also need to include is that the Pentagon is not giving us an audit of how they're losing money. They're not auditing, it's unaudited money. So it's just like throwing cash at them. And then you gotta back up and say, where did that money come from?
It came from the taxpayers.
No, it didn't come from them. New money gets circulated every single time a loan is made. It comes, the Federal Reserve is a private cartel of banking. It's called federal, but it's not federal. So we really have to zero in on that spot where money comes into circulation and for what, and begin to democratize that point.
Can I say something about the F-35?
Please.
One of the reasons that is repeatedly given by our congressional delegation and the mayor of Burlington and the head of the Vermont National Guard for having why it is necessary to have the F-35 stationed in Burlington is because one of the reasons they give is that it provides 800 jobs.
That's no excuse.
That's the primary reason, because we have to provide jobs. And that's what you'll hear from every person. Most politicians will talk about jobs, jobs, jobs. But when do they ask about the quality of life in terms of the quality of those jobs? The cost to the state of Vermont, particularly the people, residents of Chittenden County and most importantly South Burlington, their quality of life will be irrevocably damaged by the fact of this plane, which, by the way, is way over budget in its development, has not yet, by any of their standards, is not an efficient, effective. You ask what the purpose of this particular plane is. It fails on by every criteria that you can apply to it. So I guess the only thing is that we have to have this, according to them, is these 800 jobs are all important.
Well, the sound levels are above what is acceptable, even by governmental
And that's what
standards.
I'm saying. It'll cause irrevocable damage to the people living in that area.
Yeah. And the animals.
And as far as the mission of the Vermont National Guard goes, there's much talk about, failing infrastructure in the state of Vermont. The housing, which we're speaking of for requiring for veterans and everyone else who's
That would
homeless in the state
create
of Vermont.
800, if we brought 10,000.
We'd have more than
800 jobs. We would have more
800 jobs if we were providing
Right.
housing for the homeless
if we
veterans.
were installing solar panels,
panels, yep.
on every municipal building
Yep.
and every school building
Yep.
in the state of Vermont. And the problem with that is that the grid at this moment cannot handle the production of electricity that is potentially could be created with all of these panels. In fact, there's cutbacks in solar installations currently because of this fact. But that's because the technology which has been developed to store the electrical
Electricity,
power generated by solar panels has not been, the technology already developed has not been employed.
Right.
And
You mean to store it in batteries?
Well,
yeah, it has to be,
Well,
because,
patent suppression, for
Yeah.
one.
but, yeah, and unwillingness and also blocking on the part of the petroleum industry, another elephant in the room, until the earth is completely unlivable. The fossil fuel industry is likely to continue wielding the power that it wields in Congress for the same reasons, by the same mechanisms and the same reasons that you've outlined happen in regard to the military spending and the tax and the patent law. So
Let me run by the healthcare scam.
Wait, before we get into healthcare, I want to do a point of clarification about socialism. Many people might have the misinformation that socialism means higher taxes. But when we go back to how money is circulated and how it should be circulated, we can circulate it without the burden of debt, as we should. And we will not get into all the intricacies of the monetary system, but do know that Nathan Rothschild said, give me control of the money system and I don't care who makes the laws. So that, people, is what we need to re-democratize, is how the money is coming into circulation, for whom, and how much it costs.
I think another confusion with socialism is that people imagine then the government takes everything, and the government, as in our paradigm of there being a hierarchy, that the government then is at the top controlling everything.
Right.
What we are talking about in terms of socialism, particularly as it could pertain to the state of Vermont, is a lateral organization as opposed to a hierarchical association. Beginning the nucleus of a community which actually can build around the schools as the nucleus of the community, and communities interacting with other communities and spreading beyond the state of Vermont without the hierarchy.
Right. Because
Socialism is democracy with a lowercase d. Capitalism and democracy cannot. They are.
It creates destruction.
Yeah,
It
they're not.
creates enforced scarcity and
There
enforced
isn't.
competition.
Yeah, there isn't democracy in the capitalist system.
Right. You can't have equality in a hierarchy. So what we know from indigenous and other successful systems is, and also from the woman's approach, is a circular approach where we are all at the table. For example, we may have ideas. We should be able to be voting on ideas and voting on the people we want to implement them.
And before we come to voting, we should be able to discuss those ideas in open forums.
Right.
And not, the difficulty often when you're seeing a regular political debate is, first of all, for me, for one reason, for one thing, that the questions are always geared for somebody who feels that we must operate within the capitalist system as defined by the experience of the United States in the last 300 years.
They're 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They give, the 2-minute rule has been destroying our relationship with our elected people in committee meetings, in in boardrooms, all the places where the public comes in and is given 2 minutes, in debates in 2 minutes. How absurd. We've got serious and deep issues that we need your input. We all need to work together on these to develop ideas, and we need to have the feedback from the people who are implementing. As I said, I'm for a complete metamorphosis. We can use a blockchain system to be participants in what we vote for and how we get there. That's why I'm here today. I'm not here to continue or reinforce the systems that we have, because they are not broken and they are designed to break the people.
I have seen the term blockchain on the internet, and I don't know what it is.
Blockchain essentially allows for all the transactions to be decentralized, so that they will be spread out over all of the computers, so that they aren't isolated and hackable in one spot. There's work to be done.
So that's good?
That is a good thing. It's a very good thing.
It applies to the distribution of electricity as well. And,
Right. Right. So we could have a democratic system where we could be involved to the extent we want to. Let's say if you're like me and I want to be part of all these decisions and I want to propose policy. I can put policy out there, rate it up, okay? You could come in and you say, oh, I support this policy, or, oh, I'm too busy, I'm not really interested in housing issues, which we know isn't true. I want to give Murray my vote. And then she will say, oh, I support this, or I amend that, and this is all online. Or let's say suddenly, heaven forbid, that I go, wacko and start doing heroin, and you say, oh, no, we don't have to wait for 2 years to re-elect us. You can remove your support and you can change your support for our guides. I don't think we should call them leaders. I think we should call them respected guides in real time. So this whole debacle of election system is just a dog and pony show. You know it. I know it. Who controls it? The media chooses 2 people.
well, the media, whether it is public media or commercial media, both of them are private, in effect, funded by private money. And so, in other words, they are profit-making organizations, loving nothing more. I mean, this is election years are great profit making.
Pardon me. Behind the scenes, the major media has agreements with the major party leadership to cover beneficially the 2 choices that come forward.
Because
I know this.
They're both invested
because
in money.
The 3rd time I ran, I chose a major party that...
Is this your 4th time running?
Yes.
Okay.
I chose a major party that nobody was represented in, the Republican Party. Incidentally, I believe we really need to heal the us and them of these 2. But besides the point, there was nobody else running, and the Republicans were really panicking. At the very last day to submit the signatures, they got Scott Milton to run, who did not have a platform, admittedly so. His mother was the one who wanted him to run.
Of course.
And
mommy's boy.
And right away, within 2 weeks, even before then, right away, every single article about the gubernatorial run featured Scott Milne and Mr. Shumlin. Every single one. And the VPR and all the others had given him a label before any poll. They gave him a label of top-tier candidate. Every time, the top-tier candidate, he did not have a platform. He had less political experience than I did, being an activist and he had no experience. I'm not saying he's not a nice guy, but the absolute blatant stealing of the election that happens by the media it cannot be addressed within the system that we have. And I went I told you this, I went to the legislature, I said, let's have debates in each county. Let's put this in law, and that everybody who's on the ballot should be invited, and that we will, anybody who is on the ballot, because you the people put us on the ballot, are supposed to be there because the people want to hear the ideas that we have. But the legislature took my amendment that I said, and the first one was just that every candidate must be allowed into every publicly defined debate or forum. Every legally balloted candidate, as long as they behave with decorum, have to be invited to every publicly defined political debate and forum. And what did they do? They said, let's ask the ACLU. What did the ACLU say? And I had brought it in, we had it up in the little committee there and everything. ACLU said, you're going to be sued within 30 days by the press. Why? Because the press's idea of freedom of speech is censorship. So nobody of our democratically elected system are willing to stand up for democracy in the way that we need it. And look at you. You have been running. When did you start running?
The first time I ran was in 2002. I've been on the ballot every 2
Yep.
years since
Yep.
then
Yep.
for governor, for
Yep.
U.S.
But-
senator, for U.S. Congress, and the League of Women Voters has never invited me to a general
Right.
election debate.
Yep.
I'm 66 years old. The AARP,
Yep.
Association of Retired Persons, has never invited me to a general election debate. Vermont Public Radio has never invited me to a general election debate. And I could go on and on
I want to
and
make the point, though, to our listeners and viewers, that how much our marijuana freedom today we owe to Cris Ericson, who, as a non-smoker, has been championing the injustice of marijuana prohibition since 2002. You have brought it into the discussion, the political discussion, with this courage, and in the face of being slandered, of being ridiculed. And I just believe you all who do enjoy this plant or need this plant owe Cris Ericson a huge debt of gratitude for her work bringing this issue forward through all these shaming, all these awful things. I have seen her vote count cut in half, the unofficial amounts cut in half, and then the official amounts, they put half the amount of votes. So you listeners may not know what we supposedly fringe candidates go through, but we go through it because we have the passion to have some self-esteem in our country.
Okay, so before we go on too long today, because I know you
Yeah, I
said you
have
had
to go.
another appointment, there's one other thing that I'm really hot on this election
yeah.
season to discuss. This is a biggie, and that's health care for all Americans. Now, I'm going to do this again. The taxpayer dollars come out of your paycheck. Your taxpayer dollars go to the United States Congress. The United States Congress gives your tax dollars to the NIH, the National Institute of Health. The National Institute of Health gives your taxpayer dollars, they dole them out to these megatrillion-dollar pharmaceutical companies for research, design, and development to make new pills and new medical devices. Now, because your taxpayer dollars and yours and yours and yours paid for the research, design, and development of new pharmaceutical prescriptions and medical devices, the taxpayers should own 50% of the profits of these megatrillion-dollar pharmaceutical companies. We shouldn't be paying for all the research, design, and development, and they make all the profit. Now, under work-made-for-hire patent laws, we must demand that because the taxpayers are paying for the research, design, and development, that 50% of the profit should be returned to each of the 50 states to use for health care for all Americans. The pharmaceutical companies are making trillions worldwide. They sell these prescription drugs and medical devices worldwide. We shouldn't be funding them without getting 50% back of the profit, for the research, design, and development, because we paid for it. That's work made
Yeah,
for
but-
hire.
But the one point that needs to be made is that Big Pharma is not interested in curing you.
Oh, no, I know that.
Everybody needs to know this. Big Pharma is not interested in curing you.
Because you are its profit.
That's right, and that all this, or there are natural cures. I was just talking to an architect who's working with us on making these small houses yesterday. His friend had stage 4 liver cancer. Stage 4 you don't come back from. He juiced marijuana leaves, went on a fruit and juice diet, gained weight, he was emaciated, and came back from stage 4. What I'm trying to make a quick point is, don't look to Big Pharma, look to the natural sources, your diet. Are you willing to change your diet? Are you willing to change your exercise habits? Are you willing to meditate? You can be much safer learning about the alternatives. And remember, Big Pharma does not want you cured. Big Pharma does not want you cured. Make that a mantra, because they do not. They want you sick. I gotta go. Why don't you carry on?
No, we'll end it for now.
We can stop for now. I just wanted to say something else about the socialist model that Liberty Union is speaking about. The basis of that socialist model is based on the communities that we already have. The structures are there. In most small towns in Vermont, the nucleus of your community is your school. The move in the state of Vermont over the past several years to consolidate schools and take away from a small community the nucleus of their community is a disastrous move in the wrong direction. And an example we do otherwise have the structure, the school, the town government, the school board, the town government are the nucleus, can be the nucleus of a system which ultimately is a larger system, democratic system. When climate issues, consequences of climate change come to the state of Vermont, as in the case of Hurricane Irene, you found that people working together in community is what brought Vermont through. Mm-hmm. That is what made Vermont strong. Those storms will continue. We will continue to be impacted by such devastating storms. That you don't have to. I don't have to do research to confirm that fact. And once again, we will be relying on our communities to take the school consolidation is working against that primary survival mechanism that has existed in the state of Vermont. So in terms of whether socialism is a dangerous thing, I think it would be worthwhile to consider that in fact we are by nature socialist beings and that we work best in community.
Yet without the enforced competition of our debt-based money system and of capitalism, humans are much more naturally collaborative. Now today we are talking about how can we transform to enhance and reward collaboration to deal with the kind of predicaments we have across the board, whether it's the prison system, whether it's climate change, whether it's the health system. People want to live in communities now. So these are the discussions that we want to initiate and have with you. And I'm so thankful for your leadership.
All right, I'm Cris Ericson, and I'm an independent candidate for U.S. Congress. It's representative to Congress on your ballot, and also for governor of Vermont. Early absentee voting starts the last week of August for the November 6th general election. And
I'm Murray Ngoima, the candidate from the Liberty Union Party for lieutenant governor.
And I'm Emily Peyton, and I'll be bringing the discussion, and I hope you guys are coming with me, to your county where we can ask you, what do you want to see transformed? How do you want to metamorphosize our system? And I implore you to expand your imagination and to step into your personal authority to be part of the transformation. So thank you for joining us, and thank you, Cris.
All right.
Thank you.